Do you recommend the 69 test at first notice of symptoms to determine when to take that test?
It's not ready yet for clinical practice. Okay. However, that would be a very appropriate time to do it if there are some symptoms, especially if you're in the MCI stage, where the clinical diagnosis is a could be including
Thank you.
That
was my question.
Oh.
Great lines.
One second.
George, this goes to your talk about reactive oxygen species. Most of the work is done in mammals, which lasts 4 minutes, except in dolphins. And so a lot of the pathologies that are characterized are necrosis or reperfusion. There are certain organisms that are anoxia resistant, and there have been some. My colleague Peter Lutz has has shown that at least 4 adaptive responses, secretion of adenosine into the extranuclear space, shutdown on excitatory channels, turn up of inhibitory chloride channels, and downregulation of metabolic demand. So, is there any effort in the industry, and I'm totally uninformed in this, naive, is there any effort to channel that kind of data or those kinds of efforts?
Not to my knowledge, we've done a lot of studies on hibernation, in which metabolism changes,
Right.
particularly in Antarctic ground squirrels.
I see.
And when they are hibernating, things change completely. The neurons are completely resistant to death. They don't suffer oxidative damage.
So Peter had worked on Trachema scripta turtle, and Ken Story has worked on those.
I know Ken's.
Yeah, and so they last for 24 hours without oxygen.
Yeah, these squirrels don't go without oxygen, but they lower their metabolism by going to -3 degrees.
So we've heard a number of very interesting parameters that relate to Alzheimer's disease. At the first talk we heard about amyloid, 98% diagnostic accuracy was claimed. We've heard George's wonderful talk about oxidative phosphorylation in mitochondria. We heard from this interesting presentation of Linpro. My question would be, and I think this is really what confronts all of us, is to what degree these parameters have been tightly related to autopsies, since autopsies are the only sine qua non for making a diagnosis. And to what degree, when you make those relationships, is there variation that extends from the normal to the abnormal? Because ultimately, the lack of that, or the tightness of that variation will determine the promise of the diagnostic approach.
So I'm just going to take a crack at it. So first of all, it's a very heterogeneous disease. So neuropathologically, there's actually very few cases of pure AD. It's I think Julie Schneider just published a paper where from the largest AD brain bank there is, and she identified 256 different combinations. I'll tell you, at Framingham, we have a brain donation program as well. We don't have nearly as many brains, but Anne McKee is our neuropathologist. She's now known for all her CT work, but she's been our neuropathologist since 1997, and she's starting to actually digitally quantify the neuropathology. And I'm going to tell you that there's a lot more details we don't even know neuropathologically related to this disease. So just in looking at the prefrontal cortex in certain different regions, we can find people with the exact same tau pathology overall, the exact same level of severity, but the variability in their tau and amyloid distribution on a region-by-region basis, and very specific reason, is actually very great. So we actually haven't even fully characterized the AD pathology at the autopsy level, and we certainly haven't done it at the clinical level.
It's certainly not as simple as Rod portrays.
So I worked with Flor Beta here which was the first radio tracer for PET amyloid, and that came on the market. And when I was working at Lilly, and the Avid pharmaceutical company that Lilly purchased, I went back with the physicians and scientists and found out, well, how did you do the relationship to autopsy? So I don't disagree that there's different patterns for people, but looking at the classic tau and amyloid and requiring certain thresholds of that, irrespective of maybe all the places they might have been in density, but doing that as the gold standard autopsy, they then had extremely high rate of a correlation between what they saw on PET and what they did in devising the PET scan and determining what the thresholds are for positive and negative. They did that back to the autopsy, so that there was a lot. They were using that as a gold standard for ensuring they had pathological. So then, if you use the amyloid PET read properly and under the circumstances of reading the scale, you should be able to then make some jump without having to always do autopsy.
Yeah, can I just add one more thing? I think that actually we should not be talking about Alzheimer's disease as a disease. I think it's multiple diseases, and I think that the data has been showing that to us for a really long time. So I think that that's why we're talking about precision medicine, about the right treatment for the right person at the right time. And I really do think that we would do a lot better if we started to think about this disease as multiple diseases rather than a single one.
Yeah, and that's clear from the recent hippocampal sclerosis. People that have an onset over 85 have quite a different pathology, and it's probably a different condition.
Next question. My question is for Dr. Au. Thank you very much for your presentation. These days we're seeing more and more companies going into investigating voice as a potential biomarker for multiple indications. And in most of the cases, one of the concerns that come up with the voice data is the data security, because as you said, it's a very ubiquitous biomarker. There's anybody can record my voice right now without my consent to diagnose me. And I understand that it's important also to open this up platform to development, because when you bring in multiple talents, the progression usually moves much faster. But while doing that, how are you planning to address this data security issue?
Sure. No, that's a great question. Actually, the problem with digital voice, of course, is that your voice itself is identified, right? So when you take a raw digital voice recording, even if you strip it of any, quote-unquote personal identifying information, the voice quality itself is identified. So that's a very problematic part. Try to keep in mind when it comes to neuropsychologists, but what I've been told by my data science colleagues, or at least the ones that are helping me build out this open science data sharing platform, is that there are actually ways in which you can now take personal identifying data behind a firewall, manipulate it, and work with it without actually exposing it. And I will tell you that for me personally, that sounds like magic, but I've been told multiple times from multiple partners that this is possible. Sage Bionetworks is one of my partners, and they're sort of leading this. As you probably know, they're sort of leading the open science campaign as well. So I will say a certain amount of this is trust, but we are setting up a Digital Brain Trust where we've brought in sort of the experts in both ethical as well as scientific sort of data security. So but I think that first and foremost we have to figure out how to do this in a secure way. So I agree with that.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Joe Mathis, and I have Alzheimer's. I have a thought about Alzheimer's, and I think I had it here. That's where my brain is, right? My gums are here, right? And I got my teeth kicked out when I was 16, and I believe possibly I got germs in there because of that, and possibly since it's this close from here to here, I think Alzheimer's might come right to your brain that quickly. It's that close. What do you think about that?
Well, so it turns out that in my team, I happen to have someone who's trained as a dentist. And believe it or not, I'm starting to sort of explore, because there's a lot of gum disease that creates inflammation, so we know inflammation is bad, right? We know it's bad for the brain. But if you look at the literature is not consistent on inflammation and its relationship. And I think it's because we have multiple different sources of inflammation, and so we tend to isolate again very specific ones where I think there are multiple sources. So I actually am interested in the idea that anything, that here is, because as you say, the distance isn't very far. Yeah, and there it's interesting, because since I've started to be interested in that, what we call the dental-mental connection, there have been a couple studies that have started to emerge. So I've talked to the Foresight group, because they're really they're in the dentistry they're the experts in dentistry. But I think it's an interesting idea. I also obviously work with the team at Boston University that's doing a lot of work on traumatic brain injury, which is a different kind of source of external blows, right? Because I think about the blow to your mouth, but it's probably also had some sort of impact as well in your brain, and we worry about sort of those subclinical concussive. Yes. No, there's the germs, but again, I think it's multiple etiologies. I don't necessarily think, and that's why it's about, my concept is really precision brain health. So it's not about disease, but really thinking about how do we optimize people's brain health across the entire continuum to find the right solution for the right person at the right time.
Yeah, there is even a kind of a biological explanation for that type of interaction between, let's say, germs and the formation of Alzheimer's disease. There is some hypothesis that beta-amyloid peptides actually, one of their functions is to actually form a kind of network to constrain the localization of germs inside the brain. So one of the functions of the beta-amyloid peptide, because nobody understands why the nature would make enzymes that would actually form those peptides just for creating Alzheimer's disease. So this is a kind of physical function, normal function for those peptides. And one of the hypotheses is that that could form a kind of a network to actually constrain the movement of those germs and microbes in the brain. It's only hypothesis, and people have actually done some studies there, but there is some increasing evidence that...
There is evidence, but it's not conclusive.
No, conclusive, no.
Next question, the friend.
Okay, Ade from U Sciences, and I want to comment on what Hugo was talking about polypharmacology. That we do know in this space that the conventional wisdom of one target, go nanomolar, and go hard doesn't work. We know that, for example, from MK801 versus memantine, right? We do know that. But the funding agencies, like NIH, for example, are staffed by people who believe in that kind of concept. And so, how do you convince NIH that, hey, you need to take a look at programs that have broader impact, polypharmacology, broader indexes, as opposed to go after this receptor, go after this enzyme? Questioning.
Can I make a comment? Even it's even more broad. So if you look at the value of supplements, vitamins, all these things, actually there's no evidence that they have benefit. But if you look at food that's nutrient rich, it is. And every time you talk with people in the pharmaceutical industry, they want to purify the compound that's in blueberries or whatever it is. But the benefit is in blueberries or broccoli or whatever it is, because it's a complexity. And so we really need to think about that beyond the issue.
Yeah, the other aspect in industry, of course, is, as you know, that the chemists actually are trying to make very selective and highly potent molecules. It's a kind of a natural way to show themselves off how good they can do it. So they're not really trained to look at rational polypharmacy. That's another challenge in the pharmaceutical industry.
But I want to just mention that the NIA is actually doing something about this. So they have the AMP-AD program, the Accelerated Medicines Partnership AD program. They've brought together multiple research teams They've created a open science data sharing platform, and they've been bringing it, multiple data scientist teams from all over the world. So they actually are pursuing this. I think the NIA has also made it a priority to open up their data in order so that people can test these hypotheses. So I would tell you that the NIA, at least, within the NIH is starting to really innovate in this space. And so, between the NAC, the AMP-AD, NECREG, et cetera, and Sage Bionetworks, I know, has been building out some of their data sharing platform. So I do think that the NIA is on this, but I do also agree with your comment. The problem with the NIA is not the NIA. The problem with it is we have a peer review system, and that's the problem. So it's, the NIA is very supportive of the concept of digital biomarkers, but you know what? Digital biomarkers has no precedent. So peer review depends, right? It's a peer reviewed system. It depends on having peers. It means it has to have some precedent. And so it's very hard for the NIA, even when they know they need to do it, to push forward research that is precedent setting, rather than, because everything is really precedent based. Right?
One final question in the back right.
Yes, it's very encouraging to be here and hear everyone being a cross-pollinator. And I've always believed that no one problem has any one solution. So it's great to hear what's going on. I am was a caretaker of two people who had different types of dementia. They've now passed recently. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She lived post-diagnosis for 18 years. And my stepdad was diagnosed with, and I'm having a senior moment, imagine that. A different type of dementia, but they weren't sure what it was, but however, it was treated just as what my mother's protocols were, even though different teams of doctors and whatnot. So my question, one more statement, and that is that in my volunteer work, I am now mostly retired because I had to retire early to deal with the complexity of caring as an only child. So there's a book there somewhere. I am working in my neighborhood with families, with young children up to maybe 15, all Latinos. I am Latina, so I'm sort of focused on that cohort, with autism rates that you can notice, not the mild cases. Issues of other rare diseases that have a cognitive piece to them. Alzheimer's through the roof. And that population usually has the trifecta of the high blood pressure, the high blood pressure, the heart disease, and the diabetes, and the like. This is a question. Any of you know, if you're not doing it, anyone tracking families, or whether it's our own ethnicity or our own origin? I saw something being mentioned about that, because these folks, no one.
I think we have people who can answer your question. Rhonda, your study.
Yeah, well, so Framingham is a multi-generational study. So we have the original cohort from 1948. Their children came in 1971 with their children's spouses, and then their grandchildren came in 2002. But there's other multi-ethnic studies as well. There's a MESA study, there's Latino, I know that there's a Latino study. I'm working now with Black Women's Health Study. So there are a number of initiatives in this, although I will tell you that the priority of underrepresented minorities is something that the NIA is really attacking now. So we're a little bit behind. I think a lot of our studies have been Caucasian-based, but that is actually a funding priority within the NIA.
So send whoever you know who's doing this. It's Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which still has the majority of ethnicity-wise is Spanish, a larger number. The Chinese population is catching up very, very quickly, and they're having very similar situations when I speak with my Chinese neighbors.
In New York City and
Yes.
North Manhattan.
Richard Mayhew, you need to
Richard
contact
Mayhew.
him. Yeah, Jen
Yeah.
Manley at Columbia. These are all at Columbia University, and they're doing the multi-echo
Yes.
research.
Some of the leaders in the world.
Yes.
So thank you very much for participating in this session. Still ask questions during the break.
We're going to take a break until 11 o'clock. Everybody's